Welcome back to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag and Oak Bridge Wealth Management. I'm Matt Perkins, joined as always by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today?
And every day with you is a holiday. It's like late on a Friday, all these good things. And we got somebody special. Man, I was a young gun when this dude was king of the hill on the field. So I'm so thrilled to have Nick Davis here. Wide receiver, one of the best return guys, speedster, biggest biceps I think I've ever seen. Great hair. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here. I greatly appreciate the generous introduction. And Mr. Perkins, Matt, the other Matt, thank you for having me as well. And it's great to meet you.
Yeah, for sure, man. We really appreciate you having you here. Like Bernie said, we have Nick Davis, one of the greatest returners in Badger program history, great wide receiver, and a pretty handsome guy. So, all right, before we get into it today, I want to remind everyone tuning in that we continue to be proudly presented by BetOnline.ag, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball and a $200,000 bracket contest. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. We also continue to be proudly presented by our main man, Chris Anicetti, and his entire team over at Oak Bridge Wealth Management. Athletes train hard to be the best on the field, but who's making sure they're winning off the field? At Oak Bridge Wealth Management, we don't just manage your money. We handle your entire financial world. From building a rock-solid financial plan tailored for athletes to paying your bills, budgeting, setting up LLCs, and securing financing for cars, equipment, and whatever else you need so you can focus on your game. If you're a collegiate athlete or parent of a collegiate athlete navigating NIL opportunities, we'll help maximize your earnings and protect your future. Your career is short, so make every dollar count. Oak Bridge Wealth Management, where athletes build lasting wealth. Get in touch with Chris on Instagram at oakbridgewm_Anicetti. That's oakbridgewm_ANICETE, or head on over to their website, oakbridgewealthmgmt.com. That's Chris Anicetti and Oak Bridge Wealth Management. We're going to get right into it here. I'm going to steal what Bernie usually says. So let's take it back a little bit and go to little Nick. I know you were in Michigan before you came to UW, but let's take these first 14, 18 years or whatever. How do we get to Nick on the football field when you pick up a football first, or how do you sort of get into being Nick Davis?
Well, it started with I have two older brothers that really took me to task and bullied me and beat me up for my first 14, 15 years of my life. In fact, I have a brother that's my oldest brother, 6 years older than me. My middle brother is 4 years older than me. I was always their equipment manager for their football teams and basketball teams. So sports, being involved in sports at a very young age, really sparked my interest and stayed with it and pursued it. And in fact, when they would, after practice, when they would had their pads, like the first day they got their pads in 7th and 8th grade football, they came home. We all came home, and they put their pads on and gave me the ball and made me try to get past them. When I didn't have any pads on, they would tackle me fully padded. Of course, I would get upset and cry, but then I'd go right back out there after I wiped the tears away, wiped the dirt off of my knees, and would get right back out there with them. So it's always been something that from young age that I've always been interested in. And in fact, I would, if you would have asked me to go back to a 5-year-old, 6-year-old Nick Davis, if you would have asked me like what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I said I would have told you to play football, professional football player. So that was a single track mind at that age.
Then that's what makes sense, that why you're such a like dominant return guy. You just didn't want to be tackled by
That's right.
people in pads anymore.
Yeah, I had to develop the repertoire of all my moves and my quick feet in the hills in the backyards of Manchester, Michigan, for sure.
That's amazing. So then walk us through like starting to play, getting the pads, going into high school. Like, how do you know you can take football to a different level? How do you know you're chasing your dream and you're actually going to get there?
Yeah, no, great question. I'm from a really small town in Michigan. I graduated 69 people in my class, so not by any means a large school or a large community, really small farming community in Michigan. And I was always even though I'm small in stature, I was like one of the bigger players on the field. I was always the fastest, could run, jump high, and I was very quick, quicker than everybody else. So I knew that there was a little bit of a separation, but it was really when I started going to football camps. And during the summer, I went to Michigan football camp for the first couple of years, and then followed that up with some really good performances on the field. I was brought up to varsity my freshman year. I started as a wide receiver my freshman year in high school. I had a great year my freshman year. I think I had like 12 touchdowns or something like that. Receiving, and also had I think one or two returns for touchdowns as well my freshman year in high school. And then, like I said, I followed that up with another football camp in my sophomore years when I started as a running back. And that was, I feel like, my natural position, which is probably why I translated to being a decent return specialist. And then I continued to my career in high school continued to crescendo through my senior year, where I would always follow up, a football camp. So going into my senior year, I went to Notre Dame. I went to football camp. I went to Penn State football camp. I went to Michigan State football camp. And as the more football camps that I went to, the more exposure I had as a small town kid to these other universities, since I started getting recruited nationally at that point.
All right. So you're playing running back, you're playing receiver, you've gone to all of these football camps. How does UW get in the picture?
Very late in the process. Like I said, I was starting to get recruited nationally, but I was always a Michigan fan growing up. I grew up literally less than 20 minutes away from Michigan Stadium in my small farming community. And going into after my sophomore year, Coach Lloyd Carr at the time, he was just hired from interim position to the official head coach at University of Michigan. Went to a spring practice. He pulled me and my family into his office and said that Nick, we'll have a scholarship here for Nick if he continues to do well. And so I thought that that's where I was going to go. And made friends with a lot of those recruits that they were recruiting in the same class, the class of 98, graduating class of 98. And then as we got into my senior year, Michigan, that's the year that they had Charles Woodson and Brian Greasy, and they made a run for the national championship and were co-national champs with Nebraska that year. I could tell that they were starting to pull back. And I remember that actually being on the phone with Coach Malone, Terry Malone. He was offensive line coach at the time when he was recruiting me. I remember asking him, do I have a scholarship? And he's like, no, we want you to walk on. Mm-hmm. And I told him, and he explained it'd be like a preferred walk-on position. And I was like, I'm from a small community, I don't come from a family of means, so we're probably going to have to pursue other opportunities. And at that point, that was very late in the game. It was like the last week of October, I want to say. It was like right around Halloween. So I went to the other schools that I had interest in, and they unfortunately didn't have any other scholarships left. They had given their scholarships out, and so there was a few options still on the table at that point, and Wisconsin was one of them. And the connection between me in Wisconsin, because Wisconsin wasn't even really on my radar, was one of our position coaches in high school. I don't know what those bubbles were.
It was perfect timing, though.
Oh, I talk with my hands, so
I love it. No, I absolutely love it.
So one of my he was the defensive line coach, and he was actually Barry Alvarez's GA as the defensive GA at Notre, while Coach Alvarez was the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. And one of his name was Mike Bossery. His name is Mike Bossery, and Coach Bossery's best friend is Bernie Brian White. And because Brian White was the offensive GA at Notre Dame. So they were GAs together. And after the Michigan fell through, Mike Bossery called Coach White, and Coach White came to my house, started that recruiting process. I had 2 official visits left. Actually, by the time Wisconsin got in the picture, I had 1 official visit left because I had taken 3 with the University of Michigan.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's bananas. Yeah. Okay, keep going.
Yes,
That's unbelievable. Though.
And then, took my last official visit to University of Wisconsin. Family came out. We were, because of I had been kind of somewhat traumatized during the process, the recruiting process. I wasn't even sure that Coach Alvarez was going to offer me a scholarship. But when we got to it on Sunday, Vern, as you know, like you go through the recruiting weekend that weekend, and you end up right before you go to the airport. If you flew in, you end up at Coach Alvarez's house Sunday morning to eat breakfast with him, and the offensive coordinator at that time was Chile, former head coach for the Eagles. Or Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, Brad Childress.
Brad Childress, yeah. Thank you. And he pulled us into his office, and we had to actually ask him. And he was like, of course, yes. That's not even a question. Like, what are you talking about? And then I committed on the spot. I was a little bit disappointed at the time. However, I don't think it could have worked out any better for me. It was a huge blessing to come to Wisconsin. I mean, I 2 Rose Bowls. I played right away. I was a Sporting News freshman All-American as a punt return specialist. Had a great team, had a great camaraderie, great locker room, all 4 years of Wisconsin, and played with the Heisman Trophy winner, and got to play with you, Bernie Byrne. So I don't think it could have worked out any better. And if I would have went to Michigan, it would have been, I would have to say it probably been detrimental, because I would have been 20 minutes from home. I would have had so many distractions, and I consider myself blessed. Because Coach Alvarez and the University of Wisconsin and Wisconsin State and the great people in Wisconsin have afforded me so many opportunities that I'm so grateful for, that I feel like I will be repaying these debts for the rest of my life, and not happy to do so because of how good everybody's been to me.
I totally agree with you wholeheartedly. That was deep, Nick. I love it. But wait, let's get undeep. What was your visit like? Like who was your person? Like, you must have loved Wisconsin on some level to be like, yeah, I could see myself here.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was great. And in fact, I kind of buried the lead. So I didn't take my official visit till first or second week of January. So they had just come back from a getting beat by Georgia in Outback Bowl at Champ Bailey, and Georgia had a great team that year, and they got beat by like 30 some points or something like that. And so like the atmosphere on campus was not like the best. I think there's some coaches that are probably a little bit worried. There's a little bit of tension that I could sense. But my host was Matt Unernal. and nobody was on campus. Only people on campus were the local kids. Mm-hmm. So Matt Unerdal, I remember Dag Ratzlaff, because Dag Ratzlaff would, he's 6'10" almost, or 6'9". And I just remember looking at him thinking, because again, a small town kid, very naive, like, oh my gosh, you play football? But great guy. Also, Donnell Thompson, met him. He's a staple of the community even back then. Mm-hmm. And then his brother Bryson, which is in my class. I remember meeting him and hanging out with those guys, and it was really cold. Super cold in January. And then the highlight, though, was the Kohl Center. I got to go to the inaugural game against Northwestern at the Kohl Center basketball game, and watched Chris Chambers play in his first game as a UW Badger basketball player.
Nick, what did you not do at Wisconsin? You say you're blessed. It seems like you've done everything that you could do.
Oh, I know.
Under the sun there.
Very blessed. Very blessed. So, yes, thank you.
It's so cool. This is a great story. So you show up on campus. I mean, are you as jacked? You can't be, but you must be a weightlifter at this point.
Oh, I was always a gym rat.
Okay.
Always a gym rat. I started, again, because I have two older brothers, and I needed they used to pin me down and do a bunch of torture moves on me that I won't explain, but so I had to really felt like I had to fight for myself. And I started working out in a regimented workout program when I was after my freshman year. In fact, we have this rival high school because my high school didn't have the funds to have a weight room. We had one of those universal machines that had the bench, the squat, the military press, all in one station. That's all we had. And then we had dumbbells up to 35 pounds, I think, in a closet. In a closet that, and so if the three people in there working out, it was really crowded. So I went to our biggest rivals, high school rivals, weight room all summer long, and would throw weights around in Clinton High School, which again is one of Manchester's biggest rival. And then I did that through. I did that all the way through high school because I still love working out, and still work out a little bit. So I've always been a gym rat. And you know me, Vern, I love doing those curls.
Oh, I know. I was gonna say Matt Perkins. I showed up in July. Nick's a senior, and we're doing stadiums. And I am dead at the end of it. Dead. I could have been on a stretcher. That's how hard it was for me. You show up, I wasn't in shape. And there's only one person in the weight room after chugging 3 Powerades. It's Nick Davis doing bicep curls. And I'm right. Look at this dude's arms. I'm like, man, and he's completely fine. I'm like, how the hell did this guy make it? And then, actually, Nick, you were really kind to me because you might remember this, but you might not. After that first time, I looked like a freshman. You could pick me out very easy. I was hands on my knees, bent over, and Nick comes over, nice, not scream, didn't make a scene. Came over, he's like, "Hey, Bern, just stand up, man." He's like, "That's what we do. We just stand up. We don't show weakness or whatever." And I was like, "This is so nice," because usually people just yell at you from across, "Get off your knee." And I've seen people do that, but I just thought that was so nice of you because you didn't even meet me yet. You're just dude, just stand up, man. Don't worry about it. You got this.
Yeah, because that's how I was modeling the behavior that was taught to me when I was an incoming freshman, right? So, Bobby Adamoff, Jason Doring, Chris McIntosh. Those I was modeling that behavior because that's what they would do. That's how they would treat me. And that was part of Wisconsin's success. That's why we had such a great locker room. And that's how we build that trust with each other. And so I felt like I would try to always be inclusive. But, Bern, you're special though, man. Like you came in and you had like your personality, which just lit up the locker room. I remember you as a freshman, and that's super important too. Somebody to come in and just kind of break the tension in the locker room a little bit, is super important. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your guidance because it's not easy to come from New York to Wisconsin, just like show up on a Big Ten football team, and nobody really talks to you. I tried to do that too. It's not easy because you're all caught up in your own stuff. Okay.
It is. You're right.
It's not easy because I was trying to survive the stadiums.
Yep.
And you were just like, it almost looked like you didn't even do them, which is bananas. But Nick, you showed up. I mean, you really showed up. You said it was a blessing, but you showed up for one of probably the best couple of years of Wisconsin football ever. What is it like? And you played as a freshman. So what on earth is that like, showing up and then all of a sudden knowing you're going to be in a football game with a Heisman Trophy winner at back-to-back Rose Bowls? Like, my head would explode.
Yeah, it was, that first year was such a whirlwind because, and you know how it is, Bern, like you're caught up in it in the middle. And it's not until after when you start to reflect on it, like, oh my gosh, like how crazy was that? And that's why I say, like, I genuinely mean, like, I really feel like I was blessed to have been brought to Wisconsin and feel so fortunate and so grateful. But to answer your question, what was it like? I remember my first game, we played San Diego State in San Diego at night. So you had, the 11 o'clock games were fairly easy, like that first year, because you wake up and everything, and then you're in a structured environment so everybody's telling you where to go, what to do. But that first game, it was such torture because you're playing. First of all, you're like 2 or 3 hours behind, and then and you're on California time, and then you're playing at 7:30 or 7 o'clock kickoff. So you have the entire day to think about how nervous that you are as a freshman. And I remember having butterflies all day, and I tried to keep a game face, like a stern, pensive face all day, but behind that facade, like I was scared. And I remember going out the first time, like warm-ups helped a little bit, but then the first time I actually went out was for a punt return. I was hoping it was a kick return because I wouldn't be by myself back there. I would have had I think it was Eddie Faulkner that was my return buddy in the back that first year, and but it was a punt return, and I'm not kidding you. I felt like my chest was going to beat out of my shoulder. I felt like my shoulder pads were doing this because my heart was pumping so hard. And my only goal was to catch the ball. That was it. That was my only goal.
And
I caught the ball. Fair caught it. Probably should have tried to do a return because I think I had some room if I remember correctly. But after that, though, it was fairly easy.
You start to settle down.
Burns, one of my favorite aspects of playing back then was when you had those nerves like that. I loved getting hit hard. That first hard hit, because it took all that stimulation of your nervous system by getting hit like that or getting rocked like that. It took all the nerves away, and I felt like I could calm down and center myself and then concentrate on the game.
Well, I'm happy that's how you took getting hit really hard. I feel like, getting hit over and over really hard, it does take a little bit of a toll. But but as a return guy, I mean, dude, your highlights on YouTube are awesome. What is it like to be like catching, like to be at a Rose Bowl, to be catching in these huge games, so important. And then now you look back, like you were one of the best return dudes ever. What's it like to have that? Jimmy Leonard's in there. You played with him. Like, what's it like to be part of that group?
It's an honor, and I don't even know if I can that, first of all, thank you, Vern. That's a huge compliment. I greatly appreciate it because I don't consider myself one of the best return men. I feel like I was put in a very fortunate position. I think there's a little, luck is when chance meets opportunity. When the opportunity came, I was ready, I was prepared, and I did deliver. But I don't know if I consider myself a top echelon a return specialist. I know I left Wisconsin. When I left Wisconsin, I was the first player to eclipse 1,000 yards in 3 different categories. And I think there's only been 1 or 2 other players that have done that in Big Ten history. So that is something I'm extremely proud of. I don't think I hold the punt return record anymore. Maybe not the kick return record anymore, but I was just happy to be able to play because, again, I consider myself very fortunate.
I always thought, in high school, special teams, you're just trying to get through that play, right? Don't make a fumble, don't do anything wrong. Yeah. When I got to Wisconsin, we took special teams Coach Murphy, and he put starters on. I felt like when we did punt return and kick return, but mostly punt return, that was the most coveted team to be on because they were all starters. They were all dudes who were going to work their tail off. So you, Jimmy, and then Brandon Williams could all get these ridiculously good. What was your thought? Like when you walked in that meeting, you're like, man, thank God this is important.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Because Coach Alvarez would always talk about it. The 3 phases, and you got to bring your kicking game. And he would also talk about the hidden yardage in the kicking game and how that could that hidden yardage could swing the momentum of a game completely around. In return specialists, that was one way to do that consistently in that hidden yardage, because not only just was he referring to perhaps me as a return specialist, but also to Kevin, he was referring to Kevin Stemke as like one of the best nation's best punters as well.
I just think it's so cool. And so was there someone on the sidelines when you're lining up for punt return? Because I never knew this. I don't know if this is true. Was it your decision to return, or did Coach Murph say, dude, you're returning it all the time? Because I thought he told Jimmy, if you think you can return it as much as possible. Was there someone on the sideline be like, there's a guy 5 yards away from you?
I got a funny story. I'm glad you brought this up because I got a funny story for you guys. So it was my freshman year. We're playing Penn State. And it was, I had a return. I think I had an 82-yard punt return that game, and kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. We ended up winning. And that game sent us to the Rose Bowl my freshman year. Well, right before that play, like I ran out there because I would always stay like 40 yards from the football, like where the opposing team's offense was. So I could just walk out on the field, and I was right there, and I would get the call from either the special teams coach, which my freshman year was Jay Hayes, or Coach Alvarez. And I remember walking out there, and they were Penn State was getting set to punt the ball, and I didn't have a call. We had a right, a left, and then we also had another, like a trick where I'd go right, but we actually set up to the left. So we had a couple of different returns in that game, and I didn't know which one that we were going to do. And I'm sitting there yelling in the 40 yards down the field, like, hey, what are we doing? I'm like standing there like this, and then Coach Alvarez sees me at the last minute, and he gets the call from Coach Hayes, and he does this. And I remember cracking up. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. And then the ball punted the ball's in the air, and then I caught it, and then started returning it. And perhaps maybe that's the reason why it took me, it settled me down, and it made me laugh right before I caught the ball, that I was able to get that 82-yard TD. But funny story. But yes, we would get a call right from the sideline every time.
But did you get a call when the punt was in the air? Because you're looking at the punt, you're not really looking at the people running. What is that?
No, No, and in fact, it was my job to make the call if the ball is in the air, and if the like if my heels are on the 10, and if it was close, and the one of the gunners was running down the field, and the guys that are covering the corners that are covering the gunners, if they're in that vicinity, I would have to make a pull call to get them out of there, or if the ball hits as soon as the ball hits the ground, I got to yell Peter.
Yep.
So that was actually my job to make those calls. I think I don't recall there being any like, hey, Nick, look out.
Yeah. So look out, guy.
Yeah.
So you also were coached by to me one of my favorite coaches, Coach Mason.
Yes.
What was it like? Was he part of the process of recruiting you? And what was it like to be in that meeting? I mean, he was one of the funniest dudes ever, but what's it like when you show up, you're in this room, there's some studs in that room too.
Yeah, they were.
What was it like to be under Coach Mason's tutelage for was it 5 years or 4 years? 4, because you played.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. No, it was great. I never knew where I stood with Coach Mason until after my sophomore year. Those first 2 years he was so tough on me, and I'm glad he was. I'm glad because I needed it. And so he did not recruit me. He came to my high school, and he's probably thinking, "What am I doing in the middle of nowhere on this cold day?" He came and watched me run track. And it's like, what am I doing here? And I could tell he was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But once I got there, once I got to campus, though, he coached me hard, and I'm glad that he did, because I feel like I was better for it. Like he knew exactly what I needed, what needed to be said, and I responded. Because he needed to get a freshman to play. Like they knew they were going to have to play a freshman. There's going to have to be a third option for receiver. And I think they realized that I might be that individual. Like he started coaching me hard. I'm glad that he did. But you're right, and we did have some studs in that room. We had Ahmad Merritt. We had Chris Chambers. The next year, my sophomore year, we had Lee Evans. So had some real studs.
You mentioned Lee Evans, but what's it like to be around Ron Dayne? I mean, just the epitome of like Wisconsin football.
Oh, it was special. It was very special. It was intimidating at first because he's the big man on campus, right? Well,
Aaron Gibson is physically the big man.
Yeah, physically, yes, for sure. Literally, yes. But it was very intimidating. And just because of all the aura that preceded Ron. But once you got to know him, he was a super down to earth, very, very nice guy. I would feel like he would do anything for you. Like he would see me on the street while he was, in his car driving. He would pick me up and take me either home or to the stadium, wherever I needed to go. He was that type of guy. He would always look out for you. And in fact, I remember my sophomore year, he was making the run for the NCAA record, and it was a point of emphasis for the receiving group to try to make blocks down the field. Because it was important to us and then to the team that Ron got this record, because that's the type of individual that Ron was, such a team player that we wanted it for him.
So my question for you then is, especially with that run first offense, like as a receiver, is that frustrating knowing that like we're running the ball 75% of the time? Like you were the second leading receiver on the team as a freshman and you had 10 catches, I think. So like, like that's, I mean, yeah, you had Chris Chambers out there. Like obviously he was the number one guy, right. But then it's just like,
right.
Does that take a toll on you mentally at all? Being like, am I ever going to get the ball?
No, because, I was able to supplement that with returns. So I got to touch the ball a fair amount every single game. And there were times, I think my sophomore year, I thought that I should have got the ball a little bit more on offense, but we were winning. So it didn't matter. As long as we won, that's all that mattered to me.
All right, so I know we're running out of time here. Nick, we're going to have you back on because I love your story. But you chased the dream. Like, what was it like at the end? I know the shoebox happened and that year was horrible, but we don't have to relive that. But then you said as a young kid you wanted to play in the NFL. What's it like to actually prepare for that, go to the NFL, and actually catch passes and like be in games?
It was literally a dream come true. I remember, preparing for it. Coach Detman did a great job with those guys, with all of us, preparing us for the Wisconsin Pro Day, and I tested really well. Didn't get drafted, but I still was able to make a team. And I remember my second or third preseason game against the Buffalo Bills, where I didn't play till the second half, but when I did play, I had made some pretty significant plays and played very well. And I remember after sitting in that locker room afterwards thinking, man, I can't believe I made it. I can't believe this. Like, I need to pinch myself because I feel like I'm dreaming, because it literally was a dream come true for me to be able to make it to the NFL. Because I'm not the biggest guy. I'm 5'9", 5'10", 175 pounds or whatever. But it just proves, like, I worked hard at it and I didn't give up at it. And, I wouldn't let any naysayers tell me that I couldn't do anything. In fact, I try to, prove them wrong. And then being around guys like Dante Culpepper, Randy Moss, Chris Hovan, Jim Kleinsaucer, Matt Burke. Those were that was another great locker room at the Minnesota Vikings as well. They a lot of good friendships were made in that locker room as well.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty cool. All right, so you mentioned JD. Got any funny, whacked out JD stories? Did he ever go like, dude, what's up with your arms? Why are they so big?
Yeah. Well, I respect JD so much that I don't know if I can share some of the stories, because I respect that guy so much.
He'll also might show up at your house.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, pacing out in front of my front lawn, pacing back and forth, just pacing. But I remember after I did my stint in the NFL, I came back and I was a strength coach, and he gave me an opportunity to become a strength coach. And I remember it was after you guys got done working out one day, and I was over in my spot at the far end of the weight room doing my bicep curls, and he just starts laughing. He's like, "Nick, your arms are always going to be huge. Why are you still doing bicep curls?"
I love it. A good JD.
Yeah.
So we got to get you out, Matt Perkins. I know you have your rapid, but Nick, any fun, like, we used to hang out at the bars, we used to take over the KK, like, any fun PG maybe 13 stories? I remember we used to hang out at Nellie's house in the basement.
Yes,
which was such a dump, but I thought it was so cool down there for some odd reason.
It was a dump. It was a great atmosphere.
It was a great atmosphere. It's a dump though, but yes.
Yeah, I do. Kind of a funny story. So my freshman year, we were at the KK. It was Brooks, Bollinger, a bunch of us were there, but the police came in, and Brooks and I were kind of freaking out. And so we went up to Bruce. You remember Bruce?
Oh, yeah.
Went to Bruce, and Bruce is like, "Don't worry about it. I got you. Follow me." And he takes us into the back to this room, and he's like, "Stay here. If that door opens," and he points to a door with some steps up it, he goes, "If that door opens, you go through this door." And he's like, this door goes to the there's another room, and he's like, lock it. And he's like, lock it behind you. And he goes, and if that door opens, you run out that door, and that takes you to the back alley, and you get out of here. And so it was Brooks Bollinger, me, and forget the other person that was there in that room. We were sitting there just waiting, and then all of a sudden the door that he pointed to, he said, "If that door goes in, you'll lock it behind you." That door like slams open, and then Brooks and I like just out up the steps and out the door into the back alleyway. We spill out onto the back alleyway, and like there's a cop car right there. Luckily, nobody was in it. Yeah. I took off. We lived in the towers. Our freshman year. I took off up the sidewalk, like up through the back alleyway, there's like I forget what was there. There was some other houses. I think there was a temple there right by there.
Yeah, right there. Yep.
Yeah, I ended up being in front of the temple and then got my made it back to the towers, and I was waiting for Brooks like in his room because his room was right down the hallway from mine. And Brooks didn't show up for like 45 minutes to an hour. Like, what's going on? Like I thought he got hemmed up. Mm-hmm. And he as I remember it, he ended up hiding under the cop car for a while and decided, well, maybe this isn't the best place, and then walked back up to the towers.
Sounds about right. Sounds about college. Yeah. That's what it sounds right about.
18 years old.
Just don't want to get in trouble.
Just don't want to get in trouble. That's right.
We've all run from the police multiple times. No one can say they haven't.
It might be 25 years later, but we're still just trying not to get in trouble, Baron.
Yeah.
Still just trying not to get in trouble instead of. So I think that is the perfect place for us to end it here today with Nick Davis. Like Bernie said, we're going to have you back because there's a lot more questions we didn't.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I need one of those hats too.
Oh, I think I don't know if they're still making these. If they are, though, I think we can make that happen. Great. I do love this.
I love it.
It's a good one. Well, we appreciate everyone tuning in here to Believe in Badgers on the Believe Network, presented by BetOnline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management. We're back again next week with Vinny Anthony, I think. So that'll be fun. Another wide receiver, back-to-back receivers. What do you know? So until then, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you're subscribing, liking, rating, reviewing, all that good stuff. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and we'll be back again next week. And until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin. Thanks, Nick.